My name is Brittany, and I often reflect on how different my life might have been if my mom hadn't fallen ill. She passed away when I was just 6 years old, and everything changed after that. Our house was once filled with her laughter, and the walls were adorned with pictures of our happy family. Dad struggled to cope with her loss. For months, he barely spoke, just going to work and returning home. I did my best to be quiet, not wanting to add to his pain. Back then, I didn't truly understand death, so I kept asking when Mom would come back from heaven. Dad would hug me tightly but never had the words to comfort me. Then he met Sandra at a work event. She started coming over for dinner, and I noticed Dad smiling more often. I guess that's why I stayed silent as one by one, Mom's photos disappeared from the walls, replaced by new ones featuring Sandra. Brittany, Sandra, and I have something to tell you, Dad said one evening, sitting me down in our living room. I nervously fidgeted with the hem of my dress as he continued, "We're getting married, and she's going to live with us and be your new mom. Everything will be wonderful." But it wasn't. As soon as they returned from their honeymoon, Sandra began to change everything. She rearranged the furniture, repainted the walls, and imposed what she called house rules. "Brittany, your room is a mess again," she would say every morning. "A young lady should keep her space tidy. And please keep your voice down. I have a headache." I found myself constantly helping with chores, even though I was just a child. When I complained to Dad, he would say, "Listen to Sandra, honey. She knows what's best for you." One day, I overheard them arguing in their bedroom. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to catch snippets of their conversation. "She's just not adjusting well, John," Sandra was saying. "Maybe it would be better if she lived with your mother. She's always talking about how much she misses having family around." Dad's voice was low and quiet. "I promised Sarah I'd take care of Brittany. I swore I'd use the money she left for Brittany's college." I didn't realize it then, but things were about to get even more difficult. A year later, when Sandra announced she was pregnant, everything shifted again. Dad was overjoyed, and Sandra couldn't stop talking about finally having her own child. Those words hurt more than any chore or rule she had ever imposed on me because I felt like a stranger in my own home, just someone else's child, never her own. When Emma was born, I was 8 years old. I stood with Dad in the hospital hallway, peering through the nursery window at my new baby sister, who was so tiny, wrapped in a pink blanket. "You're a big sister now, Brittany," Dad said proudly. "You'll help take care of Emma, won't you?" I nodded eagerly, not fully grasping what that really meant. But I learned quickly when they brought Emma home. Sandra wasted no time in making me her personal assistant. "Brittany, bring me fresh diapers. Brittany, wash these bottles. Brittany, hold Emma while I make a phone call." The demands never ceased. By the time I was 9, I could change diapers, prepare baby formula, and cook simple baby food, all while my friends were outside playing after school. "I want to go to Sarah's birthday party," I pleaded one Saturday. "Emma needs you here," Sandra said firmly. "She's teething and fussy. Besides, someone has to clean up the mess she made in the playroom." As Emma grew, so did my responsibilities. I was always on guard, ensuring she didn't fall while learning to walk or put something dangerous in her mouth. Meanwhile, Emma was showered with attention and gifts. Every tantrum earned her a new toy or treat. When she turned 4, Emma realized she could use her newfound power against me. One time, she deliberately spilled her juice all over her new dress and then ran crying to Sandra. Brittany pushed me. I spent that weekend grounded in my room. Another time, she broke her expensive musical toy and blamed me. "Brittany was playing with it when it broke," she claimed, even though I was doing homework at the time. I lost my allowance for a month to pay for a replacement. The worst incident was when she cut up her party dress with scissors and hid the scissors in my backpack. Sandra discovered them during one of her inspections. "How could you be so jealous?" Sandra yelled. "Do you have any idea how much that dress cost?" I tried to explain, but Dad interrupted. "Go to your room. We'll discuss your punishment later." Emma stood in the doorway, smirking as I walked past. She had learned early on that she could get away with anything, while I would be blamed for everything. Grandma Rose was my only escape from the madness at home. Every weekend I spent at her house felt like stepping into a different world, where I could just be a kid. Her cozy home was filled with the sweet aroma of fresh-baked cookies and unconditional love. "Look at you, skin and bones," she would say, loading my plate with pancakes. "That woman's got you running around like Cinderella." Unlike at home, I could laugh as loud as I wanted at Grandma's, free to be myself without watching every step. When Emma visited me there, she quickly learned that her usual tricks wouldn't work. But I want ice cream before dinner, she whined, stomping her feet. Young lady, Grandma said firmly, in this house we eat our dinner first. And there are no rewards for tantrums. After that visit, Emma never came back again, claiming, Grandma's house is boring. What she really meant was that Grandma's house had rules that applied to everyone equally. Then came the day that changed everything. Grandma was visiting when she confronted Dad and Sandra. John, she said, her voice stern, that child is terribly spoiled. Sandra, you need to handle this better. You're raising a little tyrant. Sandra's face turned red. How dare you criticize my parenting? You have no right. Grandma shot back. I have every right when I see my granddaughters being treated so differently. That night, I heard more shouting from downstairs. Sandra was crying, insisting she wouldn't tolerate such disrespect. As usual, Dad took her side. The next day, Sandra announced that we would no longer be visiting Grandma Rose. But that's not fair, I protested. Life isn't fair, Sandra snapped, and if I catch you trying to contact her, you'll be grounded until college. College. That word became my lifeline over the next couple of years. I threw myself into studying, counting down the days until graduation. I had overheard Dad discussing the money Mom left for my education often enough that I knew it was my ticket out. When graduation day finally arrived, I was still in my cap and gown when Dad and Sandra sat me down for a serious talk about college. Dad started not meeting my eyes. We've decided to save that money for Emma's education instead. The world around me stopped. What? I exclaimed, stunned. Your sister has such bright prospects, Sandra added smoothly. And you? Well, you're more suited for practical work. Something inside me snapped. For the first time in my life, I screamed, that's my money. Mom left it for me. You promised her, Dad. You're just a liar. You ungrateful girl, Dad shouted, his face turning crimson. After everything we've done for you, get out. Tomorrow, you can start your adult life somewhere else. I didn't wait for tomorrow. I dashed upstairs, grabbed some clothes and essentials, and took the hidden photo of Mom before walking out. My friend Jenny had always said I could stay with her family if things got bad, and now, things had gotten as bad as they could get. Life as a waitress wasn't what I had dreamed of after high school, but it paid the bills. Barely. I started working at the Silver Spoon, a bustling downtown restaurant, taking on double shifts whenever I could. By the end of each night, my feet ached and I smelled like a mix of French fries and burger grease. But at least I was free. Jenny's parents were incredible, letting me stay with them for those first few months. But I knew I couldn't impose on them forever. That's when I met Maria, another waitress who was looking for a roommate. The apartment is tiny, she warned, and the neighbors are loud, but it's cheap. She wasn't exaggerating. Our shared space could barely fit 2 beds and a couch, but it was ours and we didn't have to answer to anyone. We worked the same shifts, split grocery bills, and somehow made it work. Any plans for school? Maria would sometimes ask as we counted our tips after closing. I'd shake my head. Between rent, utilities, and food, I could barely save anything. College felt like a distant dream. Lost the night I walked out of my old home. Then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang just as I was pouring coffee. I nearly dropped the pot when I saw the number. Brittany, sweetheart, I've been trying to track you down. How's college going? My throat tightened. I'm not in college, Grandma. What do you mean? I found myself spilling everything, the fight, getting kicked out, working as a waitress. By the end of the call, I was crying in the restaurant's break room. Grandma was silent for so long that I thought we'd lost the connection. They're miserable, selfish, she finally said, her voice shaking with anger. Listen to me, Brittany. I'm paying for your college. No arguments. No, I can't let you do that. You're not letting me do anything. I'm doing it. Your mother was like a daughter to me, and I won't let them steal your future. Have you looked at any schools? I could try the local university. They have evening classes. Perfect. We'll get you enrolled for next semester. But Brittany, she paused, let's keep this between us. I don't want to deal with your father or that woman. I laughed through my tears. Trust me, Grandma, neither do I. I could have told her about my 3.9 GPA and how I was about to graduate with honors. Instead, I clicked block user and returned to my studies. 3 weeks later, I walked across the stage to receive my business degree. Only Grandma was there to cheer me on, but that was all I needed. We celebrated afterward at a different restaurant, of course. Back at work, things began to change. One morning, Mr. Peterson, the owner, called me into his office. "Brittany, we've noticed how hard you work. How would you feel about becoming the shift manager? You know this place inside and out, the staff respects you, and you've got the education for it." That was just the beginning. 6 months later, I was promoted to floor administrator, my salary doubled, and suddenly I could afford to move out of the tiny apartment I had shared with Maria. Years passed, and I kept climbing. By the time I turned 30, I was running the entire operation. The Silver Spoon had transformed from a regular downtown restaurant into one of the city's top dining spots, and my name appeared in restaurant industry magazines. Yet my family still thought I was just a waitress. I moved into a fancy high-rise downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a breathtaking view of the city. Every morning, I would stand there with my coffee, watching the sunrise and reflecting on how far I had come from that scared teenager who had run away with nothing but a backpack. It was a quiet Monday morning when I received a Facebook message from Mrs. Roberts, our old neighbor. We had kept in touch over the years. She was one of the few from my past who had shown me kindness. She often brought me cookies when Sandra was particularly harsh and had even helped me hide my mom's photo album when Sandra wanted to throw it away. "Brittany, honey, I thought you should know Emma's graduating next week, and she's planning something nasty. She's made reservations at the Silver Spoon, knowing you work there. She's been bragging about how hilarious it will be to have her college dropout sisters serve her graduation party. She's invited all her snobby friends and even some of our old neighbors, telling everyone how she's going to show them what a failure you turned out to be. I just thought you should know." I leaned back in my leather office chair, looking out over the restaurant floor through the one-way glass. The lunch rush was just beginning, and I watched my well-trained staff move efficiently between tables like a perfectly choreographed dance. A slow smile spread across my face as I opened our reservation system. Sure enough, there it was, Emma Wilson, party of 15, Saturday at 7:00 p.m. for her graduation celebration. She even added a note requesting the best table in the house. Price was no object. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could cancel it with one click, have Janet call with an excuse about a plumbing emergency or a double booking. But no, I had a better idea. I picked up my phone and called Grandma, who answered on the second ring. She was probably in her garden tending to her prize roses and always kept her phone close. "You'll never guess who's coming to dine at my restaurant," I said when she picked up. "Who?" "Emma, Dad, and Sandra. They're coming to celebrate her graduation, and apparently she specifically chose this place to humiliate her waitress sister. Mrs. Roberts just warned me about it." Grandma's voice turned sharp. "Cancel their reservation. You don't need that kind of negativity in your life, Brittany. Haven't they hurt you enough?" Actually, I thought to myself, this might be the perfect opportunity to show just how far I had come. I couldn't help but smile as I glanced at the framed Businesswoman of the Year award hanging on my wall. Inspiration struck. "How about this? Why don't you come to dinner that night? I'll reserve the best table in the house right behind the marble column by the waterfall wall. You'll have a perfect view of everything, but they won't see you." There was a moment of silence before Grandma burst into her signature laugh, the mischievous kind that always promised some mischief. "Oh, you devious girl, count me in. Should I wear my pearls for the occasion?" "Absolutely. I'll have Carlos whip up your favorite chocolate souffle. He's been perfecting that raspberry sauce you love." "I'll bring my camera," Grandma chuckled. "This is going to be better than those reality shows you used to watch." After we hung up, I called my assistant Janet. "Clear my schedule for next Saturday evening, and make sure the staff knows I'll be handling a special table myself." "Of course, Miss Wilson. Anything else?" "Yes," I said, running my fingers along the spine of my business management diploma hanging on the wall. "Make sure we have our finest champagne chilled and have Miguel prepare his special caviar appetizers. I have a feeling this night will be quite memorable." As I surveyed the restaurant floor again, I felt a rush of satisfaction. Emma had always relished her little power plays, her attempts to humiliate me. This time, though, she was stepping right into my territory, and I was ready. Saturday evening arrived, and the restaurant was alive with its usual weekend energy. I watched from my office as Emma's party arrived. She stepped in wearing a designer dress that likely cost more than most people's monthly rent, flanked by Sandra in her typical overdone makeup and Dad looking older than I remembered. They were surrounded by Emma's friends, all dressed to impress. I spotted Grandma at her hidden table, pretending to read the menu while keeping a keen eye on everything. She shot me a subtle wink as I passed by. "Excuse me," Emma's loud voice rang out across the restaurant. "I specifically requested my sister, Brittany, as our server. Where is she?" I smoothed down my tailored suit jacket and made my way over to their table. Emma's face lit up with malicious delight when she saw me. "Oh my God, everyone. This is my sister I was telling you about." She gestured at me like I was an exhibit at a zoo. "Still a waitress after all these years. I mean, I just graduated from state, and she's still carrying plates." Laughter erupted from the table, led by Emma. Dad chuckled too, though he couldn't quite meet my eyes, while Sandra wore that superior smirk I remembered so well. "Look at her clothes," Emma stage whispered to her friends. "I guess that's what you can afford on a waitress's salary." I stood there in my Armani suit, letting them laugh. The irony wasn't lost on me. "What can I get for you this evening?" I asked, keeping my tone professional. Emma pretended to study the menu. "Well, since you asked, I'll have the lobster thermometer." "Oh wait," she looked up with feigned concern. "Can you even afford to eat at a place like this? Do you know what lobster costs?" Forced laughter erupted from her friends, although some were starting to look uncomfortable. "And after dinner," Emma continued, her voice dripping with contempt, "I want you to personally wash our dishes. I'll even give you a nice tip. Maybe you can buy yourself some decent clothes for once." I could see Grandma gripping the edge of her table, her knuckles white. Some guests were whispering among themselves, clearly embarrassed by Emma's behavior. Sandra finally spoke, her tone icy. "Really, Brittany, you should be grateful Emma chose your establishment for her celebration. Though I must say, I'm surprised they hired someone like you at such a nice place." "Actually," I said, my smile unwavering, "I won't be taking your order or washing your dishes tonight." Emma's expression darkened. "What do you mean you won't? I want to speak to your manager right now. I'll have you fired." "That won't be necessary," I replied calmly. "The manager is already here." "Where are they?" Emma demanded, looking around. "You're looking at her," I said. The silence that fell over the table was palpable. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Dad's face had gone completely white, and Sandra looked like she'd swallowed something sour. "Tch, that's impossible," Emma finally sputtered. "You're lying." Actually, a familiar voice interjected. "She's not just the manager, she owns 30% of this restaurant now." Grandma emerged from her hidden table, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The look she shot Dad could have frozen hell over. "While you were busy spoiling one daughter and crushing the other, I put Brittany through college. She worked here as a waitress during the day and studied business management at night. Every single success she has, she earned herself." Emma leaped to her feet, her face flushed with rage. "That's not fair. You're lying. She's nothing but a waitress." "Actually," Grandma interjected coolly, "she's a successful businesswoman who owns part of one of the city's most prestigious restaurants, who bought her own luxury apartment while you're still living off Daddy's money." Dad finally found his voice. "Mom, I don't." "Don't you dare, John Wilson," Grandma snapped. "You let that woman turn you against your own daughter. You gave away Brittany's college money. Money her mother left specifically for her. Well, guess what? I'm making things right. I changed my will. Everything I own goes to Brittany. Every penny." Sandra shot up from her chair. "You can't do that. Emma is your granddaughter too." "Emma has had everything handed to her on a silver platter her entire life," Grandma replied coldly. "She doesn't need my money. From what I've seen tonight, she could use some basic human decency." Emma completely lost it. She grabbed her wine glass and hurled it across the table, shattering plates and sending food flying. "This isn't fair. You're all just jealous of me." "Security," I called calmly. Two men in black suits appeared instantly. "Please escort these people out." "You can't throw us out," Sandra screamed. "Do you know who we are?" "Yes, I do," I replied. "You're trespassers causing a disturbance in my restaurant. Leave now, or I'll call the police and press charges for the damage to my property." Emma lunged for another plate, but one of the security guards caught her arm. Dad stood there looking lost as they were led to the door. "Brittany," he called back weakly. "Please, can we talk?" I turned my back and walked away. Over the next few months, he tried everything: calls, emails, even showing up at the restaurant once. I had security turn him away. That was 5 years ago. The Silver Spoon is now the top-rated restaurant in the city, and I've opened 2 more locations. Grandma kept her word about the will. Thankfully, she's still going strong at 75, tending her garden and coming to the restaurant every Sunday for her chocolate souffle. Last week, I received another message from Emma, something about how she's changed and wants to make amends. I did what I always do with messages from that part of my life, hit delete and went back to work. Some chapters are better left closed.